welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel, depending on how long we've known each other. Today I have a big Hoya haul! I am really excited about these Hoyas that I got, and I really would love to share them with you, and I really hope that you would like to see them. If not, then, you know, go away. Please don't go away! So what I like to do in my plant hauls is, I like to present the plant, and I also just like to talk a little bit about the plant, give some facts and information. I think it's just more interesting than showing the plant, but don't worry, I got your back with some B-roll. You're gonna see some nice close-ups of these plants as well. A lot of these are on trellises. I've spent the past couple of days, this is right in front of my face. What am I doing? Do I really not know how to make videos? It's been over 2 years I've been making videos. I still don't know how to frame myself and not put things directly in front of my face while I'm talking. I haven't had time to film this Hoya haul since they arrived, but I did have some time in my evenings to kind of relax, decompress, and create a bunch of trellises for all of my Hoyas out of this wire rabbit fence stuff. It's really easy to make these. So that's why they're on the trellises, and this isn't really an unboxing so much as it's just it's a Hoya parade. Let's call it a parade. I purchased Hoyas from two separate vendors. The first one is Rien Orchidée, and I've mentioned them so many times on this channel. They're a vendor located in northern France. They specialize mostly in orchids, hence their name, Rien Orchids. And then they have a lot of Hoyas, and 2 or 3 times a year they order a shipment of Hoyas, I imagine from Thailand or something. And so I keep in very close contact with them so that I know when they're getting new Hoyas. The second vendor was just an individual vendor that I found on a website called Le Bon Coin. Here in France, it's kind of like Craigslist, but it's a little less seedy, a little better moderated. So I found this woman who has a spectacular collection, and I will say I am definitely stalking her vendor page now. I have her on follow, so I get notifications when she puts new plants up. Her prices are fabulous, and no, I'm not sharing. I'm keeping that one in my pocket. So yeah, the first 3 I ordered from her. This is Hoya heuschkeliana variegata, and I do have a Hoya heuschkeliana, just the regular old heuschkeliana. Adorable little leaves. It's very easy care. It grows really quickly. And so I thought, why not get its little brother, heuschkeliana variegata? You can say variegated, but I really like to say variegata. So yeah, I decided to get this because it was only like $8 bucks. And I was like, that's a steal for me. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a freaking steal. So I got this little guy. It's a rooted cutting. Hoya heuschkeliana, like the original, the OG, was published in 1989 by Kloppenberg. It originates in the Philippines, and this is basically just its mutated brother or sister or non-gender specific friend. Apparently it is a prolific bloomer once it does begin to bloom. I'm not sure how long it takes to mature, because some Hoyas, it can take 2 to 5 years for them to mature enough to bloom. Carnosa is like 2 to 3 years, for example. However, the variegated version is definitely going to grow a lot slower, since variegated plants grow at a much slower rate than their non-variegated brethren. I don't know why I keep using brother and brother. I'm not sure. I can't say why. It must be something subconscious that I haven't yet addressed in therapy. But anyway, it's an adorable little Hoya. I absolutely love it, and I'm very excited. Very excited about it. We're only on number 1, folks. I am already peak excitement here, so hold on to your seats. Buckle up. The next one is Hoya Bella albomarginata. It's one of the 2 types of variegated Bella that you can get. It's albomarginata, which means like white outer edges or outer margins, because the white appears on the outer margins of the leaf, believe it or not. I have just coveted the albomarginated version for some time. I would also like the other variegated version, but I haven't found that yet, and I think that the other one is a little more expensive anyway. I probably got this for 12 euros, but I'm not absolutely positive. Anyway, it's putting out new growth, and I'm really happy about that. I refer to this plant as Hoya Bella. There is some dispute over whether or not it's Hoya lanceolata subspecies Bella, or if it belongs to its own, if it has its own species, Hoya Bella. I know that Kew Gardens believes that it is its own species, and so I refer to it as Hoya Bella rather than Hoya lanceolata subspecies Bella, because it's harder to say anyway. But if it's ever made official, I promise I will call it lanceolata subspecies Bella. You see, it's hard. But yeah, it was discovered by Thomas Lobb. It was published in 1848. He found it growing near Moulmein, the capital of British Burma. However, Thomas Lobb, he was known for throwing people off the trail because he wanted to be the person who discovered all the plants. And so he would often write down the location of plants incorrectly so that any other botanists who were hoping to find new species in the area where he was working wouldn't. But Kew Gardens believes that it also grows in Manipur in northeast Southeast India. So that may have been where he actually was when he discovered it. Who knows? Disputes between botanists. It's just something where I never imagined like drama would be cooked up somehow, but my God, tea exists in every community across the globe. Tea, no pun intended, because it's a plant. There's another version with the, the inverted variegation, and apparently both of those mutations came out of Bui Nursery, Bui being the surname of the family who owned the nursery in the 1980s. I don't know where it was located. I couldn't find very much information about it, but I did read that they named this one Annika Bui, probably after a family member, right? And then the other one is called Lida Bui. I couldn't find any proof that those are the actual published names for these two plants, but that doesn't mean that they didn't publish it. That doesn't mean that there is no patent on those names. It's just that I couldn't find any evidence of it on the internet. And, a lot of times people really will just say, oh yeah, that's Hoya strawberries and cream, and people could just kind of say, oh, okay, it's Hoya strawberries and cream. But there is absolutely no Hoya on earth called Hoya strawberries and cream. People just like to slap names on it and pretend that it's the official name, but a lot of the names that we use for many Hoyas, especially cultivars, are not actually legitimate names for plants.
I like to relax by rambling.
Number 3 is Hoya Sunrise, and there's not a lot to show here. It's just 2 little leaves. It's just a 2-leaf cutting. But I have wanted Hoya Sunrise for so very long. So this was a cross created by Michael Miyashiro in 1992, and it is a cross between Hoya lacunosa variety pallidiflora and Hoya obscura, 2 of my absolute favorite Hoyas. I am on the lookout for an obscura. I would love to have an obscura. I'll put some pics of Hoya Sunrise up. But if you do acclimate it and you can get it into a really high amount of light, the leaves turn this really beautiful red color. Just a gorgeous Hoya all around. Next we have Hoya Rebecca. I have wanted this Hoya for so very long. I really love it because it's again a cross between 2 of my favorite Hoyas. You have Hoya lacunosa Longobie Island and Hoya obscura, 2 really beautiful plants that create an ultimately maybe even more beautiful plant. And it was created in 2007 or 2008 by Anton Jones, and he actually didn't manually do the cross-pollination between those 2 plants. He actually witnessed the moth or the butterfly, whichever it was, that came and was pollinating the 2 Hoyas, and he said he actually was able to capture a picture of it when it was in action. Hoya Rebecca has a sister plant called Hoya Rachel. He had basically planted, all the seeds from the pod, and he noticed that 2 of them were different and he liked them both. So he kept those 2 and threw the rest of the seedlings away, and he created 2 cultivars from the same cross. Anyway, I just really love Hoya Rebecca. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And, one of my favorite flowers comes from lacunosa, and the flowers on Hoya Rebecca look like lacunosa blooms, except they're pink with yellow corolla, and they're just adorable. So I'm really looking forward to the day when this plant is mature enough that it blooms. All right, here's another one that I made a trellis for. This is Hoya camphorifolia. It was first published in 1904. It was discovered by a German botanist named Otto Warburg. Otto Warburg, I don't know if that's how you say it in German. I really don't know. Do they say V instead of W? I have no idea. French is hard enough, okay? You can grow this as a hanging plant because although the leaves are kind of big, they're like medium-sized leaves, they're really lightweight. So you can grow it as a hanging plant, but I'm just trying to spare myself some room and I'm growing it as a trellis plant instead. I've also read that it's a prolific bloomer once it's mature enough and starts to bloom, but I'm not sure, I couldn't find any information about when it typically begins to bloom. I didn't see any notes that it was an early bloomer the way that Numelarioides is, for example. The blooms are very, very pretty. They're like a pink color, and I just find this to be a really gorgeous Hoya all around. I really love the foliage. I love the way that it grows. It's just gorgeous. I don't remember, wait, did I say where he found it? It originates from the Philippines. This one's growing in the Philippines. I think I forgot to say that. Moving on. Oh, we have Hoya dolichosparte. Oh, now I can't say it at all. If you try too hard, you just lose it. Hoya D is native to Sulawesi, and it was discovered in bloom in January of 1910 by German botanist Rudolf Schlechter. I keep wanting to call him Robert. It's Rudolf Schlechter, and he was actually famous for identifying, I think, over 1,000 different orchid species. That was really his specialty. He really loved orchids, and he identified many orchids, but also this little guy right here. Rudolf Schlechter went all over the place in his expeditions. He went to Africa, Central and South America, Australia, New Guinea. He was all over the place, but unfortunately he did contract a lot of tropical diseases, and those had long-term effects on his health. So he died at a very young age in 1925. He was only 53, and he had a very vast and highly valuable herbarium that was located in Berlin. But in 1945, it was completely destroyed by the Berlin bombings, which is very sad. I guess the only fortunate thing about that is that he had passed away in 1925, so he wasn't alive to experience that heartbreak, because I cannot imagine spending my entire life traveling the globe, identifying species, having all of these just amazing experiences. Places like Sulawesi, which are just, I mean, the area where this Hoya alone was found is spectacular. It's beautiful and amazing. And then having my entire collection destroyed in World War II, that would be devastating. Well, that's a downer, huh? I got real dark there for a second. I'm sorry about that, folks. Let's move on. Schlechte also identified Hoya benguetensis. It grows in the Philippines in a province called Benguet, and that's why it's called Benguetensis. Ensis is basically like saying originates from, and so benguetensis means originates from Benguet. Now you know. I really just ordered this one because I felt like the leaves were very appealing. I think it's really beautiful, and also the flowers are pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. They're like yellow, the inside is red. I'll put a picture up there if I can. It's a really cute Hoya. Unfortunately, I did read that it's quite a stemmy plant. Like, it doesn't put out a lot of leaves, it's a slow grower, and there's a lot more stem than there is leaf to this Hoya. So I prefer to grow it on a trellis, but I heard that when it does start blooming, it blooms quite frequently. So there's kind of a payoff there, and that it's slow growing, but after 2 years or so, it should start blooming, and it should start blooming a lot. What's next? Oh Lord, we're gonna talk about Hoya verticillata. Hold on to your pants, folks. We're going in. This is Hoya verticillata, but it was being sold under the name Hoya parasitica, which is a common mistake. But I knew it would be Hoya verticillata, and I have my friend Miro from Betsy Plants to thank for that. If you don't know Miro from Betsy Plants, you should head on to his channel right after you watch this video in its entirety, all the way to the end. He's a very knowledgeable and funny YouTuber, and his YouTube channel is very Hoya-centric, so if you really like Hoyas, you will really love his channel. Anyway, he and I had a long discussion about Hoya verticillata and its misnomers. Actually, there are a ton of wrong names that people sell this plant under. You have Hoya Betsy, Hoya acuta, heuschkeliana, what else? Globifera, citrina. There are like dozens of wrong names for this plant, including parasitica. It's also mistaken for Hoya nicholsonia, which I also have. And both verticillata and nicholsonia are often mislabeled as Hoya Betsy. But why? We must ask ourselves why, mustn't we? First, let's address why Hoya verticillata would ever be mistaken for Hoya Betsy. It was a case of mistaken identity. Somebody found Hoya verticillata, published it, and then somebody else some odd years down the road found another Hoya and said, "This is a new species, I'm going to call it Hoya Betsy." And then some odd years later, authorities realized, oh, Hoya Betsy is really just Hoya verticillata. There is no Hoya Betsy out there. Someone tried to publish Hoya verticillata under the name Hoya Betsy, and then it was discovered that it's not Hoya Betsy, so forget about Betsy, okay? Stop calling plants Hoya Betsy. Now, what does Hoya nicholsonia have to do with that? Because Hoya nicholsonia is a completely different plant. It's a different species, but sometimes Hoya nicholsonia is also called Hoya Betsy, and sometimes it's also confused with Hoya verticillata under the name Hoya Betsy. Well, Hoya verticillata was originally found in China. It was published under the name Hoya verticillata. Hoya nicholsonia was found in Australia, totally different continent, and it was published under the name Hoya nicholsonia, a different species. So what's going on? Why did these two get mixed up, and why are they both labeled Hoya Betsy? At some point, a botanist and Hoya vendor named David Little, who is very well known and well regarded in the Hoya community, changed one or maybe a few of the labels on some of his nicholsonia clones to Hoya Betsy. Why he did that, I don't know. I can't say. I'm not David Little and I wasn't there. And now there's some confusion between Hoya verticillata, Hoya nicholsonia, and both of them being called Hoya Betsy. Through pure speculation and no actual information available to me, an idiot with the internet, I suspect that David Little thought that one or more of his nicholsonia clones were Hoya Betsy, before it was known that Hoya Betsy was actually just a mislabeled Hoya verticillata. So basically he thought that one or more of his Nicholsonia were Hoya verticillata, but he labeled them as Betsy because that's what we were thinking it was at the time. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. However, Hoya verticillata is native to parts of Asia. Like I said, it was found in China. Hoya Nicholsonia is native to Australia. Totally different continent. I know that because I'm smart. So what can we do with that information today? Why am I doing this to us? Why am I talking about this? Why would I drag us through this mud? Well, it's because people are still labeling these plants as Hoya Betsy. So when you order a Hoya Betsy, how do you know if you're getting a verticillata or if you're getting a Nicholsonia? Well, you have to know where it originated. So if somebody is selling a plant under the name Hoya Betsy, but they include information about where it originated, i.e. Asia, it'll be a verticillata, i.e. Australia, it'll be a Hoya Nicholsonia. It won't be a Hoya Betsy because Betsy don't exist. And what makes it more confusing is that clones of this plant, like verticillata, can look vastly different from clone to clone. Like Miro from Betsy Plants showed me his collection of verticillatas because he has multiple clones. And if he didn't tell me, I would have just imagined that those were different species. I wouldn't have ever guessed that they were all verticillata clones. And if you'd like to see a list of misnomers that are used for this particular plant, Hoya verticillata, I'll throw a link down below, and there's like a whole list of different plants like heuschkeliana, acuta, etc., and then you can know what you're getting. And the whole reason that I get into that mess is that I ordered this plant, Hoya parasitica, because I knew that this is a misnomer for verticillata. And Rien Orchidee was selling plants under the names Betsy, Nicholsonia, verticillata, parasitica, and acuta. A lot of those plants are the same plant. Verticillata, parasitica, and acuta would all be verticillata. Betsy could go either way. They don't specify where it originated. And then they also have Hoya Nicholsonia. Now, I have already purchased the plant that they sell under the name Nicholsonia. And the reason that I went with the parasitica is basically because the verticillata that they're selling is just a little more expensive. So I thought, well, I know that the parasitica is going to be a verticillata, so I may as well pay a little less money for the same plant. However, if I had the money, I would buy all of those plants. I'm very curious to see what they're labeling as verticillata and acuta and Betsy, because if they're selling them under different names than Nicholsonia and parasitica, they must be very different looking clones, right? So I would like to see all of them, but you know, I'm not made of money, folks, okay? I grow plants, but unfortunately none of them are money trees. Now, if you would like to know more, I mean really deep dive this topic, I highly recommend leaving a comment down below that says, "Dear Betsy Plants, we need to know," or navigate to his YouTube channel and leave a comment like that on his channel and let him know that we would really appreciate a deep dive, a true thesis on the history of this perplexing error. I think he would really like that. And then the next one is actually just Hoya verticillata variegata. And to be honest, we're working on our little rooty roots. The issue that I have had with Rien Orchidee, and now that I understand the issue, I can manage it. So I feel comfortable ordering from Rien Orchidee. They always send me, I mean, look at all these plants. They're beautiful plants. They're all in very good condition. They're all very healthy. But the thing is, they root their Hoyas in sphagnum moss. And it seems to me like they take dry sphagnum moss and they just like pack it as much as they can into these pots. And then they put the cutting in there to root the cutting. However, when I receive them and I water them, there's so much sphagnum moss and it stays wet for so long. Pretty quickly, they will develop root rot. It's just a good rule that if you're receiving plants in the mail, you're receiving Hoyas in the mail, you want to repot them into something that you're familiar with. Unfortunately, Hoya verticillata was the one Hoya in this bunch that suffered the most root rot. And so I decided to just work on getting some really strong roots before potting it up. I really just don't want to lose this Hoya. It's very special to me and it's a little bit rare. It's harder to come by in France. We are almost done. We are almost through the bunch, all right? I know you're just like, how long could this possibly go on? How long can we hear this woman talk about her brand new Hoyas? I'll tell you what, probably I could go on for a real long time, but I'm not gonna hold you hostage, okay? I'm not gonna hold you hostage. We've only got like 3 more to go, four more to go. So 4, yeah. Here we have Hoya UT-011, also known as Hoya sigillatis subspecies paitanensis. And if you remember what we talked about earlier, if it ends with ensis, that means it comes from Paitan in Malaysia specifically. Good job using the knowledge that you learned here today. Or maybe you learned it before and you already knew that before coming and clicking this video, but let's pretend that I am helping. I'm helping. It was collected in April 2011 in Malaysia and it was published in 2014. So, you know, it hasn't really been passed around for very long. It's only been 7 years since this was officially published. And it's only been 10 years since it was discovered. So in terms of Hoyas, you know, a lot of these were discovered in the 19th century. So I would say it's pretty new to the scene. I would call it a new, maybe, I don't know, it's cool. It's cool, yeah, it's the new cool kid in town. I don't know where I'm going with this. All I want to say is that it's a cute little Hoya. It's a pretty typical looking Hoya. You know, there's nothing super extraordinary about it. I just wanted it, okay? I just wanted it. I don't need it. I don't need a specific reason, okay? All right, let's move on before I lose my mind. This is a lot to go through, folks. I've been talking for a long time. Next, I have Hoya mindorensis. There are a few different flower types with this Hoya. I had to get the light yellow. And I really wanted the pink flower one, but I was dilly-daddling around. Like I was putting these Hoyas in my cart and I was like, do I want that one? I don't know if I want that. Like I was trying to like keep the number down to like 9 Hoyas. I was originally supposed to buy 6. Things got out of hand. I don't really want to talk about it. Anyway, while I was fiddling around, deciding which ones I wanted, which ones I didn't want, they ran out of the pink ones. Like somebody else was on that site just buying them out. That's fine. That's fine. No big deal. It's fine. This one was also discovered by Rudolf Schlechter. It was found in Borneo and it was published in 1906. I've heard it's a pretty slow grower, but it is really easy care. So if you're looking for an easy care Hoya, you're just dipping your toes in, but you're looking for something new and interesting, this is a good choice. Some people do say that it resembles Hoya erythrostoma, which I also have. I personally don't really see the resemblance, but that could just be because these leaves are really young and thin and flimsy, whereas my erythrostoma leaves are like really thick and chunky boys. Maybe just different clones look differently, and some of them look more like erythrostoma. The bright side is that when this one does begin to bloom, it blooms more than erythrostoma. So if you're choosing between those two, I guess go for this one. I don't know. Now this one is really nice. I love this Hoya. It is top notch. I mean, this is the one. Like this is the Hoya for me. It's just so beautiful. Like there are 2 types of leaves that I really like. First is the thomsonii types, a real vivid green color, and then they have really dark green veins going through the leaf. They just make it really visually stunning. I love Hoya leaves like that. And the second type of leaf that I really like is a leaf with a lot of texture. This leaf just has like a lot of, I don't know what word to use to describe it, so I'm just gonna show you some B-roll, but I really like the leaves of this plant. The blooms on this plant look absolutely stunning. So, all right, I have things to tell you about it. This really beautiful Hoya was found along the eastern coast of Vietnam. Wow, I cannot even say Vietnam. If I cannot say Vietnam, then it's pretty obvious I'm not going to be able to pronounce the next things that come. It was found in Kanchi and Hanhiae by Nguyen Thuy Han. She discovered it, she took pictures of it, and she also made some illustrations of the anatomy of the plant, and so she had the great honor of having this plant named after her. Did I say 2014? Did I say it was published in 2014? It was a lot of information for me to get through and a lot of Vietnamese for me to mispronounce, you know? 2014 is when it was published, so it's pretty young in terms of like Hoyas that we are aware of. I don't really have a lot of information about this Hoya. I mean, it hasn't been around for a really long time, although I wouldn't consider it rare. I don't think it's that hard to come across this Hoya. I did read on Doug Chamberlain's site, Doug Chamberlain of Vermont Hoyas, that it only blooms for 2 or 3 days, so that's unfortunate. It's always sad when a Hoya blooms and you only get to enjoy them for a couple of days, but I'm just happy to have it in my collection. It's so beautiful. We're on the last one, I promise. I can't believe you're still here with me, but we're gonna make it, folks. We're gonna make it. If you want to talk about a plant that has caused me great distress, I'm gonna talk about Hoya thomsonii. This is my 3rd or 4th Hoya thomsonii. It's definitely the 3rd thomsonii I have gotten from Rian Orchidee. Maybe this will be the one. Maybe we're gonna make it, baby. Maybe we're gonna make it. This Hoya is native to northeastern India and Tibet. It's from the Himalayas and it was discovered by Joseph Dalton Hooker in 1883. Fun fact, he was like Darwin's closest friend. Isn't that cute? Hooker had a hard time getting through the Himalayas. He was imprisoned at one point. Apparently things didn't go too awry, you know, he wasn't too severely abused or anything, and they let him go before the British authorities had to do any negotiating. And I think that this was a particularly dangerous region for botanists to go to, if I recall correctly. So good for him, you know? Thank you so much, it's a beautiful plant. Anyway, from what I read, after he was imprisoned, he never went back there again, but he traveled elsewhere in the Himalayas. And a fellow student from Glasgow University, Thomas Thompson, started traveling with him. And so that's how Hoya thomsonii got its name. He named it after his buddy and his travel partner. I think it's so cute when like, there are quite a few Hoyas that are like named after botanists' friends, and I just think it's really cute. Not a lot of Hoyas named after their wives. We won't get into it. Hoya thomsonii is a Hoya that I have been working on for a very long time. The problem is that the first one that I ever bought was in really poor condition, and I tried to buy it from Rien Orchidée at their orchid exposition in Paris. Like, they do traveling expositions around France, and she didn't want to sell it to me. She was like, it's not in good condition. I don't think it's gonna make it. And I was like, I can change it. I can bring it back to life. I couldn't. She was not wrong. I ordered one last December from Rien Orchidée. It arrived with root rot, and it really didn't. I thought it was gonna pull through. It did not pull through. And now we're working on our last and final Hoya thomsonii. This is the one, folks. This is the one. I refuse to give up on trying to have this Hoya, okay? Do you understand? I'm determined to have a healthy, happy Hoya thomsonii. This is definitely the best specimen I've ever received from them. This has the biggest leaves. It's the healthiest looking one that they've ever sent to me. I think it's probably because I sent them numerous emails and pestered them for an entire year saying like, when are you getting Hoyas? I'm ready to make an order and I really want that thomsonii that you told me that you would give me for free as a replacement for the last thomsonii that died. They're probably so sick of me. They were like, give her everything we've got. Give this girl the best one because we gotta get her off our backs. And I really appreciate that. I really do. It's got a lot of character because it's very, very fuzzy. It's like almost fluffy. It's like the kitten of Hoyas. I absolutely adore it. And I look forward to the day when it blooms. That's enough. That is sufficient. That is a sufficient number of Hoyas to talk about in one sitting. My good heavens. So that's my Hoya haul. I really hope that you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, please give this video a thumbs up. Help me, help me survive the algorithm. Leave a comment down below, and especially leave a comment down below if you would like a full, detailed thesis from Betsy plants on the history of Hoya Rebecca, verticillata, Nicholsonia, and that whole mix-up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more plant content in the future. You can support me on Patreon, and please don't forget to have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon. I would like to thank my patrons, my $13 patron Tina Halberg, my $10 patrons Neil Anthony Rankin, Frederick Bowman, and Carolyn Green, my $6 patrons Jennifer Broadfurter and Michelle A, my $5 patrons Darcy Lovage, Casey Schmirna, Topolish, Tisha McCann, Michelle Sadlowski, James Kopp, Abby Clark, Leah A, Miranda Moyer, Fenner Lamb, Haley, Adam Banzoff, Aaron Mio, and Kayla Mann, my $2 patrons Amin, Karen A, Steve A, and Pamela, and my $1 patrons Brianna Phillips, Emily Seplu, Plantgirl _50 Bree, Amanda Panda, Ashley Egal, Lydia, Gracie, Leda Anastasia, Cassandra Lewis, Sophia, JJ Garave, Elizabeth Velasquez, Wanying Zhang, Josie, Nicholas Curtis, Lexi Haynes, Sophia Clark, Linda Thea, Claire Lynn, Elizabeth Mary, and Denise Grimm. I love you so much. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time.